Hello Hylians! The trailer came out for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and I'm a little late in the game, but I think my different thoughts and analysis should be shared with you. I am Nico, I am not a theorist, not too much of a Zelda lore person, and I'm just a collector type player. But either way, I'll explain what I see, what I think of the trailer, then some opinions on the gameplay. I think this is the same thing in Breath of the Wild, just better rendered, so I don't have much to say about this one. This is Link in soldier's gear because he was probably a soldier before he was a champion. This is Zelda, probably in the castle. Now she walks outside. Amazing. This is where I believe the gameplay starts for Age of Calamity. This is familiar to Hyrule Warriors where Link was a regular soldier, he fights well, then eventually becomes one of Zelda's main fighters. Like Hyrule Warriors, there's an army of soldiers and they fight along with a stronger soldier or a commander. If you defeat the commander or that strong soldier, the small group of enemies will not respawn. It seems to be the Moblins are the commanders of the Bokoblins. Here's a cutscene with Zelda, Mipha, and Link in the background, which seems to be around Zora's domain. Link is still in soldier's gear, so they're not champions yet, and Zelda is showing Mipha the slate. Now this scene with Revali and Link. They don't have blue garb, so this is also still early. This looks like them fighting or sparring, Link missing, and Revali about to get him in the head. This could be just straightforward and exactly what I said, but what are the chances maybe these two are actually separate scenes? Probably not, but shouldn't Link be looking upwards or sideways if Revali jumped over him? This is probably the scene right before the one in the beginning before they attack. This part seems to be an interesting one. Link is throwing a bomb, hitting a few blue bokoblins, some of them catching on fire and blowing up an enemy base. Like in Hyrule Warriors, that could be one of the ways to take over an enemy keep. And you might notice Link is throwing a bomb without a slate. I personally don't think it means anything, but who knows. The reason I think this is because in Hyrule Warriors there are some items that everyone can use, like bombs, hook shots, and even the ocarina. So it could be the same thing here. In this scene, King Rom is probably doing his pep talk right before the war. Like I mentioned before, in Hyrule Warriors, each army group has a commander. This also applies for allies because you're able to play as the enemy army. So you'll see here there is a soldier with the red pom-pom helmet in front of each group. You would assume there's one at the bottom that King Rom is blocking, and that one could be Link. This next short scene has Link, Zelda, and what looks like to be Impa in front of the castle. The castle's probably being taken over by now, and Zelda's like, oh crap, as she sees corrupted guardians coming.
Then it goes back in time a little bit, because now we're in the castle where King Rom still likes to talk to people from balconies. We see Zelda, Link, and what looks like to be Impa based on her hair. And she has the baby guardian with her that we see in the title art. Now we have some cannons shooting from what seems to be a Kala citadel. Then we have some stall monsters, probably just to show that they're in the game. Then we see a Lionel, which I hope is probably a mini-boss, since we're running out of other enemies to make mini-bosses. Unless they come up with new ones. Zelda is using stasis, and her move list may be just slate runes. Then Mipha using one of her attacks. The one thing that bothers me is how easily the Guardian flips back. I would think they'd be mini-bosses and wouldn't fall back easily. Unless she killed it, and that's what happens when they die. Then Urbosa. In Hyrule Warriors you could always strafe and backflip, but maybe they added slow motion here to match Breath of the Wild, so maybe they might have flurry rushes. Like I mentioned earlier, Blade Masters are probably commanders of the foot soldiers, but what I found interesting is that there are Hyrule soldiers inside Gerudo Town. Either they're women or men, but from this angle it's hard to tell, but I think they're just hiding their faces with different types of helmets. And you'll notice that Urbosa does have the champion's garb. But maybe she always had it. Wasn't she like good friends with Zelda's mom or something like that? You'll tell me in the comments if I'm wrong either way. Now the 5 champions in their garb, and of course Revali has to be different. In this scene, we'll see Vah Rudania not on Death Mountain. These skulls are usually on enemy bases on water, and I'm 100% positive that I'm 90% sure that this is a tower, but which one? It could be Lanayru Tower since Daruk's stuff would be close to Death Mountain. And the scene with Daruk looks like gameplay of him using an attack on a Hinox at Akala Citadel, then Revali using a mass attack. And the gate behind him is probably one of those keeps that I mentioned earlier from the first Hyrule Warriors. This is a cutscene with Link using the Master Sword holding it against some kind of lightning weapon. It could be new because it looks different from anything I've seen in Breath of the Wild. These 4 cutscenes are probably where the 4 champions lose to the Blights, based on what I see in the background. Link in the champion's tunic and Zelda in a white dress means Link is soon going to take a 100-year nap. This is probably Hyrule Castle being taken over and Zelda and Link are about to run away. We assume Link gets put to sleep and Zelda comes back to hold Ganon for 100 years. And finally the trailer art where Daruk gets Mike Wazowski'd. All in all, I think it looks like this. Link is a commander, Hyrule gets attacked. They save what they can, and Zelda, Link, and Mipha talk to King Rome where they go get Mipha and Revali. At the same time, Urbosa has her problems with the Yiga, and Daruk eventually is the one who joins the fight in Akala Citadel since it's close to Death Mountain, which they'll probably lose. I didn't pay attention much to Breath of the Wild lore, so I might have lots of things wrong, but that's what I got from what I remember and from watching this trailer. I'll talk about my gameplay opinions now, but I figured I'd give my thoughts about the story since people have asked. First, the enemy armies. It looks like Bokoblin armies to the Moblin commander, Yiga foot soldiers to Blade Masters, but what are some other ones? I'm thinking Choo-Choos and Keys to Wizrobes. Lizalfos are in the game, but they could use different colors as commanders, or they can make them commanders without an army. They did that in Hyrule Warriors. Guardian Scouts could be enemies and their commanders could be other Guardians. Peblets may not have a commander because I think Taluses should be mini-bosses or even bosses just because of their size. And the same goes for Hinox, Moldugas, and Lynels. For the storyline, in Hyrule Warriors there was a main storyline. Then it sometimes would split up to allow you to play different scenes that may have happened at the same time to eventually come together in the end. Like this is Impa's story, Lana's, and Link's, and eventually they get together. With that said, they also allow you to play as the enemies and play their stories, which is why I think they may allow you to play as some Breath of the Wild enemies, which I'll talk about later. And one more thing about the story is Linko. She had her own story, which means Age of Calamity could have some surprising characters and you may be able to play their story. Now with all that said, who do you think you'll be able to play as from Breath of the Wild? If you haven't played the first Hyrule Warriors, they have 29 characters, 31 if you consider challenge mode. So there's lots of possibilities and it depends how big they want to make the game. I'm thinking Zelda and the Champions, Impa and the Baby Guardian may be one of her weapons. Speaking of, Epona was a weapon for Link, so maybe the Master Cycle could be a weapon for Link from Breath of the Wild, or maybe Zelda since she's the one with the slate. The same goes for the Fairy. The Great Fairy was a weapon in Hyrule Warriors, so maybe the fairies from Breath of the Wild could be a weapon, possibly Melania or even dragons. The characters that might happen since they were probably alive at the time would be Purah, Robbie, King Rome, King Dorphan, Bluto, Canelli, and I'm going to add Cass, but not Cass himself. I think he mentioned he had a teacher or something. That guy. Some characters that might have their own stories could be Kilton, Beetle, or Hestu. And another character that has a big fan base is Sidon. You might think he can't because he's a baby at the time, but the game doesn't necessarily have to end after Zelda traps Ganon. There's still 100 years of story they can add up to right before Link wakes up. With that said, I might as well throw in Yunobu, Riju, Teba, and why not Bolson or Sage? It could happen. I also think you're able to play as the Divine Beasts since in Hyrule Warriors you were able to play as Ganon. My last group of characters would be the enemies. In Hyrule Warriors you were able to play through the enemy storylines, so why not be able to do it as Koga, a monk, or Mazkosha? Maybe play as the Blights too. I think it would be annoying to play something where you know you can't win, so maybe you play the champion fights as the Blights. However, they're huge, except for Thunderblight. With that said, they could add new characters that may not have made it through the 100 years. but I'm also thinking they might add some stuff that can connect to Breath of the Wild too. In summary, there's of course so many things that can happen, but by me saying everything, then I'm possibly right about some things. They could do alternate endings, change some characters, and create new stories about them that were never told. Hyrule Warriors wasn't canon, and Age of Calamity isn't confirmed as canon. But I don't think they would promote a game that's a prequel of Breath of the Wild, but doesn't count as being part of Breath of the Wild. But also, Zelda lore has changed based on games that have come out. But it is fun and interesting to learn some stories and see how they connect, even if there's a chance to change. I am excited for Age of Calamity. I do plan to make content on it, and of course I plan to 100% that Zelda. This was a different type of video for me, so I hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and if you want more Zelda content, I hope you consider subscribing or at least checking out my channel. See you next time!